watch Pinups, Cool Cats, and Comics on Facebook and follow them on Instagram.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Pinups, Cool Cats, and Comics. I am Dennis, and again, this is not Teresa. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it again tonight, so we wish her well, and she will be back next week. But I have with me David Weiss.
How are you, Den?
All right, and just to recap, I want to thank Paul Bond for being here last week. You know Paul too.
Paul was here?
Yes.
I'm very impressed.
Yes.
It
Paul's
is. He's
Paul's
terrific.
become a good friend over the years and very helpful.
Yeah, he's terrific.
Great heart.
And one of the best, one of the hardest working guys in stand-up.
Great comic, great teacher, and it's rare that you find someone who's so well at both.
And humanitarian, animal lover, works at shelters, the Brookhaven Animal Shelter, and I'm familiar with that. He's a terrific guy, big heart.
Yeah, I wanted to ask him how his event went. He had 2 events last week, but unfortunately I forgot to ask him, so hopefully he tunes in at some point and lets us know. Because he had the 2 charity events this
Right,
weekend.
that's right.
He had one to raise money for the cats that he helps, and one for a vet that was walking from Buffalo here, I believe.
Wow.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, he's incredible. Works very hard.
Yes. So before we get into our guest tonight, we will go to our sponsor. And I see Frank tuned in. Hopefully he's shooting darts again tonight. But here we go. Kayla Logistics, where your business is our priority. Moving products you use every day across the country and around the world. Contact Frank Zambuto for all of your domestic and international logistic projects. Frank has over 20 years experience working with many name brand companies in the apparel, cosmetics, casino, TV, and electronic industries. For trucking, air, ocean cargo on all 7 continents, all you need is one solution. To all Cool Cat listeners, just mention our show and Frank will offer a free cost and transit time analysis for all of your cargo. When cost and time matter, we deliver. Frank Zambuto and Kayla Logistics, where your business is our priority. And you can reach him on his direct line at 347-536-3933 or his email at frank@kaylalogistics.com. And again, it's very confusing right now with tariffs and all stuff like that. So he's not confused. Give him a call, and he can definitely help you out. And Frank right now is probably at the Irish pub shooting darts or wherever they're shooting tonight. So hopefully they're all watching. So we'll say hi to them. And here we have David.
Hey.
He has a long history in entertainment. 40 years in radio.
Radio and TV. That's right.
Radio and TV. He's a comic. An announcer not only on 1010 Wins, but for the Long Island Ducks, and an editor of Golf Magazine.
Golfing Magazine, local publication, serving the greater New York area. So that's, about what I do, among other things, too. It's a resume that spans many things, going back to the 70s. So this is
amazing.
My 40th year in radio and TV, sure.
So you're very comfortable on the mic, obviously.
I don't know, it's just the mic. I've never talked into a mic before. Testing.
Before we get into the beginning, I want to ask you, all your years in radio, did that make it easier to get into comedy?
Yeah, definitely. I've had the experience of being in front of an audience and emceeing and hosting functions. Although when you're in radio, you are talking into a mic and there's usually no one in the room. And that's true at 1010 Wins too. We have millions of listeners, but you're just pretending you're talking to one person. So there are many people in the radio field who are afraid to talk in front of a crowd. You know, the number one fear in the United States isn't snakes, it isn't heights.
Stage fright?
It's stage fright. It's
Really?
talking in front of an audience.
See, now I would think that was easier because coming from a DJ and a band background, I had an easier transition. But sometimes with a quiet crowd, it's tough. But you're used to it because you don't have a crowd cheering you on as you're making announcements. It's,
that's true. I think
at least on the radio aspect of it.
Right, but for you, it was a natural. But I, along the way, because I've done news, I've done sports, I hosted a radio dating show up in Providence for a while. I've done a lot of things in radio, almost everything. But as an outgrowth of that, I hosted a lot of functions, emceeing and, whether it be conferences or special events or charity events. And then I'd always employ humor or try to employ humor into those types of things. So I did a little stand-up in the early 80s in Rhode Island, but it wasn't serious. It wasn't as serious or as frequent as I'm doing it now. And then I finally took a friend up on an offer after all these years, about 10 years worth of offers, to participate in New York's Funniest Reporter contest, run by a very good friend of mine, a former radio colleague who's now Goldman McCormack. His name is Mark Goldman, and he runs a very successful PR company. And this is a charity event bringing together New York anchors, reporters, writers, people in the media in New York City, and bringing them together to raise money for the Humane Society. It's for animals as well. And I finally said yes. It was the year I was turning 60. It was 2017. I figured, let me do it. I've never done it before. And then I caught the bug. I put together a 5-minute set, and with the help of Gladys Simon, who is a legend in New York City. She's a wonderful stand-up, a great mentor. She has Gladys's Room at Comic Strip Live, and it was there on the Upper East Side, Comic Strip Live, that I did this 5-minute set, and this has been the outgrowth of that. I've just taken it from there. And you and I went to Stand-Up University together for Rich Walker, Peter Bales, and Steve Lazarus, and that helped tremendously. And I'm trying to climb the ladder. I'm having such a great time.
And you're doing a great job climbing that ladder.
Thank you.
But before we get into your comedy career now, let's go back 40 years ago. What got you into the business in the first place, and what was it like then?
It actually goes back even further. You really find this interesting? I'd rather talk about you.
No, we'll get there.
I'd rather talk about this guy. Look at him. When I met him, he says, yeah, I work in the jail, but I look like an inmate. Look at this guy. Look at him. But for me, my entire radio career began in 6th grade when I decided to ask my parents for a gift. I wanted a tape recorder. That's all I wanted. And I took the tape recorder to school, was interviewing classmates, made my own little fake radio station. I took it into the stands in junior and senior high school, did play-by-play of the basketball games and football games. And yes, I became addicted to the sound of my own voice, but also to radio. I mean, these are the days where I'd stay up, well past my bedtime with a transistor radio listening to out-of-town sports teams. WCAU in Philadelphia, WOWO in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and listen to hockey games and things. And I loved sports, couldn't play it, but I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. That was my first love. And went to college for that, Curry College, small college in Milton, Massachusetts. Went to the college radio station, and my radio career began up in Massachusetts.
It's funny because actually part of the bit I do is the difference between our generation and the new generations of what we had. And I remember back in the days of press and play and record. And, we would just announce our stickball games or whatever.
Yeah.
Somebody was always a big sports fan that would maybe throw some Mets or Yankees names on there, being up at bat. And it was fun. Now, this is everything.
Well, yeah, there's my phone over there.
Just you have a phone, you got it all. But there was especially when you get that little plug-in mic for that recorder, as horrible of a sound as it was cool. It was fun. It made you feel like a reporter. And the news was a lot more respectable then. I'll say that because, like we were discussing before, you only had a few channels. So you had to be the best at your game if you wanted the spot.
Yeah, that's right.
There was no internet. There was no, cable package with, 600 channels.
No.
You had the main networks.
Yeah. Listen,
And
I got a few years on you, but I grew up with channels 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11. 13 was PBS. 41 and 44 on UHF had Spanish wrestling. I mean, that's all I grew up with.
There was a UHF channel that played music videos too, and I don't remember what channel it was.
That might have been after I grew up. I'm not sure.
My first TV was a black and white TV in my room.
Right,
just
me
the
too.
antenna.
Me too.
I wasn't even allowed to hook up to the house antenna, let alone the cable, till I was old enough. But yeah, so I know what you're talking about, and there was just even the TV shows. It was a different quality program because there wasn't many options.
That's right.
Now you don't even need to be on TV to be famous. So.
No, YouTube, right? Anything. You could do it with your own phone, just a video selfie, and then you can take it from there.
Unfortunately, you see the results of that with the quality of stuff that's out there right now.
But
it doesn't mean there's not good stuff out there, but there's just so much.
Yeah.
It's tough,
I know. That makes me feel older than you could possibly believe when I think back to, watching TV in the black and white, fine. But in radio, I mean, it was before satellite radio, of course, and it was before FM really became popular, too. I was a creature of AM radio. I loved sports. I'd listen to news. I listened to talk shows on WMCA and Long John Nebel and Bob Grant, Barry Farber. So that's what I loved growing up, was listening to radio. And it wasn't just in the car. It was a transistor radio, in my room. I love listening to it.
You are on one of the most iconic stations out there, 1010 Wins. I mean, I'm going to split the audience right now. There might be some younger people who really aren't familiar with it.
Well, if you're not, then your father, grandfather, grandparents
somebody is.
are. Yeah, 1010 Wins is...
It was the station to go to. You're stuck in traffic, go to 1010, find out what's going on.
Right. Traffic and transit on the ones. And, it's a 22-minute cycle. Give us 22 minutes and...
we'll give you the world.
There you go. That's part of my opening bit where I say, well, we've had some cutbacks. We're down to 12 minutes. Can only give you Pat Jog and Yonkers. I mean, that's part of the opening shtick. But 1010 Wins has millions of listeners. You know, we're serving the entire tri-state area, and it has been doing news, all news since, I believe, 1965. We had our 50th anniversary a couple of years ago, celebrating 50 years of all news. It played music up until then.
Oh,
you know,
really?
up to 65.
Yeah, it was definitely before my time.
Yeah, well, I don't remember Wins playing music either. I was listening to other stations. But,
Right.
but yeah, I mean, 1010 Wins is still there. You can depend on them. We don't do commentary, so it's news right down the middle. It's, you know, and it's a cycle, but people depend on us, you know, around the clock.
Yeah, and I know I was one of them. I really don't travel as much anymore, and if I do, it's usually someone else driving, like, or flying.
Yeah.
But yeah, whenever I was driving, if I started seeing any sign of traffic, went right to AM and right to 1010.
And I will tell you this, after starting my radio career in Brockton, Massachusetts, at a little 1,000 watt daytimer station that used to go off the air when the sun went down, and then I went from Brockton to Attleboro to Providence, some radio in Boston, and then I found my way to Long Island. I was on Walk Radio, that's #1 station on the island, for 13 years, co-hosted the morning show there. But then after that, I found my way to 1010 Wins, thanks to the news director there, Ben Maverek, who was a friend. And I did an audition, went on the air, and I've been there since the fall of 2005. So it's been a while at 1010 Wins, and it's been a joy. Work with a wonderful staff there. But before I go on the air, anytime I'm at 1010 Wins, I still get butterflies, no matter how long I've been in this business, because it's 1010 Wins. I grew up in North Valley Stream, listening to New York radio. This is the biggest market. This
True.
is the Big
Yeah.
Apple. I'm still thrilled to be on the air in New York City. It still, you know, gives me chills when I think about it. You know, then you're on the air and you get used to it, but I've never taken that for granted, ever.
Wow.
Really.
That's good, yeah. I mean, you still get that with comedy too?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Especially when I haven't done it for a while, it's always like, oh no, and then as soon as you get up there, it's everything
Yeah,
falls
it's funny,
into
isn't
place.
it? Your heart starts beating. You know, the MC's up there, and usually I'm MCing. I've done a lot of MCing, you know, so I'm the first one up there. But the last two shows I just did, Friday and this past Saturday, when I was introduced by Paul Anthony, who's become a great friend and he's a wonderful comedy producer, and he's saying, all right, I want to tell you about this next guy. We're going to bring him up, and my heart starts beating, you know, and I'm saying to myself, wait a minute. What am I saying? I don't know my whole set. I don't know anything. I forgot all my jokes. You know, and then you get out there and you get going, and it's fine. And the audiences that you know have been reacting very, very well. I'm thankful that it's going well. But yeah, you get butterflies up there because it's only you. You know, at least when I was doing TV, I did TV weather on Channel 55 for 4 years. You're depending on so many other people around you, technical people and everybody else. Yeah, there's nobody.
That was another iconic Long Island station.
Yeah, Channel 55.
Yeah.
Yeah, that came out of nowhere. 2008, a former radio general manager who I knew, who was the GM of Channel 55, his name's Dave Feinblatt, very nice guy and a good friend, and he called me out of nowhere and said, how would you like to join our Channel 55 news team? I said, well, what, doing sports? He said, no. I said, you want me to do news anchoring? No. You want me to do the weather? I didn't have a cumulus cloud of weather experience, but I learned it, took a couple of courses, and I did everything myself, the graphics, the forecast itself, or whatever. I did that for 4 years.
Well, as we see, even with all the technology they have now, they're still guessing.
Yeah.
When they do the weather.
That's, again, part of my comedy routine.
Yeah.
My forecasts on Channel 55 were 90% right, 10% of the time. So you do the math on that.
Well, see, even back then, like they would go for it. They would give you a report. Hey, we're gonna have 4 to 6 inches of snow. It's gonna start around this time, end around this time. Now everything's a cop out. Well, we're thinking 4 to 6, but if it goes this way, we'll get nothing. If it goes that way, we'll get over 6. And then if you look at the percentages, they're only giving themselves maybe a 20 to 30% chance of being right. Everything else is on either end of it.
All I could say is growing up, before satellites, before this, before that, you know, the Doppler radar or whatever, it seemed that when we were growing up, and again, I'm older than you, but when I was growing up, I think the weather guys used to call Cleveland, see what's happening there, and that'll happen here a day and a half later. I think that's how they figured it out.
And they're more accurate.
Yeah, they were more accurate. That's true. I was playing golf on weekends as a teenager. I needed accurate forecasts for what was going to happen during the weekend, and it seemed like they were more accurate then. But who knows? It's a tough business. I mean, how about the November 18th snowstorm that we just had? That surprise snowstorm last November. That was probably our biggest snowfall we've had this winter.
Yeah.
But
At least in this area.
But you remember, everybody got that wrong.
Right.
Everybody screwed that up.
And I like their excuse. It snowed so fast that it kept the temperature down, so it snowed more.
There's
I've never heard that before.
always an excuse. Believe, I used them all when I did the weather.
Yeah.
Believe me, this is true.
But yeah, I mean, apparently you can't get accurate with the weather, but I wish they would try to sell it a little bit better than even when they show like a hurricane coming up the coast. oh, well, our modules show this, and it's like
Well,
spaghetti.
you got the European model,
Yeah.
the American model, and then you got the cone.
Well, they narrow it down
cone.
to the top three, and one's usually a direct hit, one's brushing, and
Right.
one's not hitting at all. So you're really not telling us anything by telling us that.
But think about this. In, what was it, the turn of the century, early 1900s, when Galveston, Texas got hit with that hurricane, before they started naming them, there were no satellites, no forecasts, no TV, no nothing. They didn't know what was coming. They looked
Right.
outside. It looked a little cloudy,
Uh-oh.
and then said, oh, it's getting dark, whatever. And then the entire city was wiped out.
Right.
Thousands died because they had absolutely no warning. Think about a time when they just did not know what was coming.
Yeah.
At least we can tell you.
Yeah, at least they say, there's a possibility of it coming, but
Yeah.
it just seems like whenever they narrow it down,
Yeah.
they give you the only three options you have.
Yeah, a tornado. You don't have much warning now because you're not sure where that's going to land
Right.
and when it's going to pop up, whatever. But in those days, a hurricane was like a tornado. They had no idea. It's like
Right.
a tsunami coming out of nowhere. So,
Yeah.
but in these days,
So in some ways we've gotten better,
Yeah.
but yeah, Frank is working tonight, so he couldn't make darts. Oh well, next week. But all right, so you also are an announcer for the Long Island Ducks.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing that?
since day one, the former owner of the Ducks, he is now the CEO and the founder of the entire Atlantic League, Frank Bolton, became very good friends with him as he tried to bring his Double-A New York Yankee farm team, the Albany Colony Yankees, to Long Island in the late 1990s, or mid-90s rather, mid-90s, tried to get it. And we had, at WALK, we started a petition drive. We had all kinds, thousands and thousands of names in support of bringing these Albany Colony Yankees to Long Island, professional baseball on Long Island. And the Mets stepped in and said, no, we have territorial rights. This is within 50 miles of Shea Stadium. Nope, we're legally going to prevent you from putting a Yankee farm team on Long Island. So Frank, being such a wonderful man, so smart and driven, said, all right, instead of bringing the Albany Colony Yankees here, I'm going to create my own independent league that won't succumb to any territorial rights. And he created the Atlantic League of Professional Baseball, which started in 1998. The Suffolk legislature approved and the state approved funding to build a stadium in Central Islip, and the Ducks were created in the year 2000. And that's how I was involved with the Ducks even before they were created.
Oh, wow.
So I became one of the original and still longtime play-by-play voices of the Long Island Ducks, along with other people on the broadcast team. But yeah, I've been involved with the Ducks since day one, and we call it the longest-running off-Broadway show you're ever going to find. Affordable family entertainment. The tickets are still cheap. The parking is free. You can't beat this, and the Ducks are always competitive.
Because baseball games used to be a great family event. You could go cheap, and
Oh,
not so much anymore. You can't even park.
Oh yeah, the parking.
So
is
that is a
ridiculous.
great alternative.
Yeah, you know how much it costs to go to a game now with a family of four.
Yeah.
And instead, the ticket prices are
And
so
$20
reasonable.
hot dog.
Yeah.
I mean,
No.
it's just crazy. So the food there is still somewhat affordable?
Oh,
or-
very.
so-
Everything's affordable for a Duck game. If you've never been to one, it's just.
It's been a while since I've been there, but I remember them being reasonably priced.
Yeah,
So.
it's terrific. And I just want to send my condolences to the Atone family. Bob Atone, the longtime public address announcer for the Long Island Ducks, passed away recently. The funeral is going to be held later this week. And I was close friends with Bob, as so many people. In fact, he was the longtime head of the Brentwood High School radio station, WXBA, which has started so many radio careers here in Long Island and elsewhere. So Bob will be sorely missed, just in his early 70s. Wonderful man. And the voice of the Ducks, we were each other's sound-alike. People would come to the ballpark, and they would go to a Duck game, and then I'd hear from them the next day saying, yeah, I heard you at the Duck game. And I said, really? Did you bring along a phone to hear me on the internet, liducks.com? No, I heard you at the game. I said, no, you didn't. You heard Bob Atone. He sounds like me. I sound like him. We used to joke around, and
That's funny.
we used to wonder who would be more insulted by that, the fact that we sounded like each other. But yeah, wonderful guy. But there are people who've been with the Ducks for so many years. It's just a wonderful organization and a great place to take
a
your
lot of
family.
A-listers on those teams, too. Guys on their way up or on their way down.
That's
which
true.
Still have some talent, so it's definitely a fun game to catch.
Well, one of the longtime Ducks now, who is now a player coach, is Lou Ford. Now, Lou Ford played for the Twins. He played in the playoff games with the Baltimore Orioles. Longtime major leaguer. Lou Ford is still a Long Island Duck and still hitting unheard of average and still a great hitter at the age of 41. I think he's 41 or 42 now. I think he turned 41 last season.
Wow.
Lou's incredible. So yeah, you get a lot of
Even though it
great
might
players.
not be the technical pros, you're still seeing pro level players.
Yeah, you're seeing somewhere between, I think, AA and AAA, more like AAA. I mean, it's so competitive and such good baseball. Yeah, so and for me, my childhood dream was to do play-by-play for sports. With everything else I've done in my career, I would do that for nothing. I would pay the Ducks to do this. I mean, this is a dream of a lifetime to do play-by-play. Because when you do play-by-play for baseball, it's more of a narration. There's so much downtime between pitches.
Right.
It's a more leisurely pace. It's not basketball. It's not hockey. So you get to tell stories, and I get to do funny home run calls. I get to do some humorous things. You get to stretch it out a little bit.
Do you have a lot of sports knowledge memorized, or you have sheets in front of you?
Yeah,
'Cause I know some people are just geniuses and they can remember everything.
My broadcast colleagues, Michael Pollack, who's director of media relations with the Ducks, and Chris King, who's the voice of the Islanders,
Right.
who also is one of the Ducks play-by-play guys who goes back to the beginning. And Chris and I, again, very good friends. Chris has incredible knowledge, remembers everything, and he remembers Ducks history as well. For me, my history is a little spotty. But so I'm injecting more humor and
Right.
and trying to add personality to the broadcast. But working with Chris and with Michael Pollack all these years has been terrific.
'Cause I know my bubble was burst when I was younger. When I found out a lot of these announcers weren't as smart as they seemed, they had notes in front of them with someone calling from a trailer with a quick fact.
That's true.
But then I knew some people that were just like photographic memories. I had a friend passed away years ago, Joe O'Neill. That guy knew everything about every sport he loved. He could tell you the time that something happened, the day, what was going on, what the weather was like. He just remembered everything about it, so he could rattle.
There are
stuff
people
off.
like that. Chris is like that, encyclopedic knowledge.
Yeah.
And I have a very good friend who was there at the beginning for the Long Island Ducks. He is now my comedy manager, Mike Graham. And Mike is like that too. He remembers everything because he's a big Mets fan, and he could tell you about the things from the '69 Mets and the '73 Mets and everything else. I will remember certain things, but I don't have that incredible, immediate command. So. But on a baseball broadcast, especially, let's say if it's a blowout or there's time to kill, pitching change, whatever, you fill time with stories, and you can inject your personality. And I'm very proud to say I've never called a home run the same way twice. I sing, I put in Long Island Railroad stuff, I throw in cultural references and everything. Yeah, my home run calls are as wacky as it gets. A lot wackier than John Sterling and the Yankees, with burn, baby, burn, his that. No, mine are just way out.
I'm going to have to listen next time. I'd like to hear some of those. Now, all the New York and Long Island iconic things you've done, have you ever done anything with the Islanders, especially knowing Chris King?
No, I went to the Islanders first year, 72, 73, their first year in the league. So now I remember this very well. I was, 72, I was 14 turning 15 that summer. My mother and my friend's mother used to drop us off, pick us up at the Coliseum because we lived fairly close in Valley Stream. And so we went to so many of those games that first season. You know what the ticket prices were for the Islanders the very first season? $8, $7, and $6.
I was going to say $15, but that still would have been way off.
That's double.
Yeah.
$8 were the most expensive, and $6 you could sit up, whatever. And we had a great time going to those games. Years later, I would cover the Islanders when I came back to New York in 1989, and I was working at WALK Radio. I got my press pass, and it was such a thrill to be able to go into the Coliseum and not pay, and actually go to the press box and cover the team. The team wasn't that great in the late 80s, early 90s, they got there.
I remember those years, unfortunately, too well.
Yeah, but and that also covered through the 90s, through the John Spano fiasco and everything else. But that 92-93 season, that was the season of Glenn Healy and David Volek's goal in Pittsburgh. I was there in Pittsburgh for that goal.
93, they actually made a little bit of a run.
Oh, they went to the semifinals. Yeah. They lost to the Canadians, but they beat the defending Stanley Cup champ Penguins in Game 7 in overtime on Volek's goal, and I was there for that. And,
I was at all of those games.
God, that was a great year. Glenn Healy, who I became very friendly with, was the goalie for the Islanders. And remember, he went to the Rangers next year for the Stanley Cup winning Rangers. But Healy was so great. Ray Ferraro, there was such great Islanders. And that was Pierre Turgeon, who was the scoring leader for the Islanders that year.
Yeah, Randy Wood with his one move.
Yeah.
that worked for quite a few years.
That was a great team. So,
I was at the game where Turgeon got taken out. with Washington.
That was it. Dale Hunter.
Yeah.
That was the game. Yeah. So, and
It was exciting that year, but I don't think nobody was beating Montreal that year.
no.
'Cause I don't want to say. All right, a lot of sports are fixed. It's proven. You see a lot of it in boxing and stuff like that. But it was just a little weird to me. All right, it could be salty that the Islanders lost to Montreal. But L.A. also lost to Montreal with Gretzky, and Gretzky was getting called penalties, which you never saw.
Yeah, that's
so I think the fix was in for Montreal that year.
It's too bad, too. Had the Islanders been able to get past Montreal, I think they probably could have beaten the Kings.
I think so, too.
Yeah, and it was
Kasparaitis had Gretzky's number.
Yeah. Kasparaitis.
Yeah.
Oh, man, he was such a pain to every other member. We loved him. Everybody hated him. He was such a pain in the neck.
And he was doing most of it legally. He had that killer hip check.
He did.
And I even remember the game where he leveled Eric Lindros legally.
Yeah.
I think he got a 5-minute penalty for it. Eric Lindros even said it was a legal hit.
Yeah.
He said I made the mistake of putting my head down when he was coming. I'll never do it again.
That
But those were really tough years.
That was I tell you, I'm old enough to remember the 74-75 Islanders. That was the team that came back from 3-0 to beat the Penguins, came back from 3-0 to nearly beat the Flyers. That was the famous Kate Smith game when Kate Smith, who did God Bless America for the Flyers, they brought her out and set of Rice. She actually sang it live in Game 7. She was the good luck charm for the Flyers. And Eddie Westfall, captain of the Islanders, presented her with a bouquet of roses. But it was too much for the Islanders to overcome. They were shut out, I think, in Game number 7. But that was a great year. Then you had, of course, the Stanley Cup years.
Yeah.
And again, coming to Long Island in the top station in 1989, and then being able to interview, become friendly with, and even start playing golf with some of the guys that I absolutely drooled over. Clark Gillies, Bobby Nystrom, Mr. Stanley Cup goal. And I got to meet these guys and become friendly with them.
I met a lot of those
Absolutely
guys, world-class acts.
Yeah, absolutely.
I never met, no, I really can't think of a guy that from those eras that I met that you heard bad stuff about some of them, but I never had a bad
all
experience
great guys.
with them. Yeah.
So, and
Even Billy Smith.
Yeah, absolutely. You didn't want to go
Heard
near
a lot
him.
of bad things about him.
You don't want to go near him. He'd take the stick and he'd whack your ankles. But but a great guy.
When he was in game mode, it was different. Like there were even stories about him. He went after Bossy.
Yep.
Because he felt he shot a wrist shot at him a little too hard. Walking out, someone patted his shoulder. He just whipped the stick up and broke. It ended up being his doctor's wife's hand that he broke.
Wow, I know.
But when he was in game mode, you could not go near him. Afterwards, he was a great guy.
That's one of the benefits, one of the incredible perks of being in the media, is that you get to meet the idols. If you're a sports fan, especially. Right. But I've met actors and people who performed on TV and everything. Nothing means more to me than sports. But you get to meet politicians. Everybody, it's just, and I'm still thrilled when I meet somebody, especially who I idolized. When I got to Long Island in 1989, after growing up here, of course, when I met Buddy Harrelson, I was literally tongue-tied. I was on the phone with him, sweating and whatever. And when I met him in person, he looked at me, he said, "Calm down." He says, "It'll be fine. It'll be okay." It's always been said, if you haven't met Buddy Harrelson, you haven't lived on Long Island more than 2 minutes, because he knows everybody. He's met everybody. Now he's in the battle for his life, with Alzheimer's, and our thoughts and prayers are with Buddy every single day. But you would not meet anyone who more is befitting of the name Buddy. He's everybody's pal, and that's meant so much to me to meet him and other members of the '69 Mets. I mean, in 1969, I was 11 years old, turning 12 that August. A perfect age for baseball to make an impression on a youngster.
Right.
And that's why I got so wrapped up in the Miracle Mets. I mean, that was such a magic summer for me. That was also the summer of Woodstock, the summer of us reaching the moon, the summer of Ted Kennedy and Chappaquiddick. So much happened that summer. Summer of '69 was incredible. That made such an impression on me.
That's true, yeah.
In terms of music, in terms of politics, I've always been, somebody who's loved politics, following politics. That was incredible, but none more so than baseball and the Mets. I mean, that's when they made their move.
Right.
And it was just terrific. So that's one of the great side benefits. It's better than a pension plan for me. Is meeting all these people who I've idolized.
Probably doing golf. You probably meet a ton of people.
Yeah.
Everybody plays golf.
Well, I'm an addicted golfer and I stink.
Yeah.
But I'm editor of a local publication,
Do you
Golfing.
stink, really? 'Cause you-
mediocre.
I've never played, so I
Yeah, I should 90. So I'm like a 16.
Miniature golf, I'll take anybody on. Real golf,
hey, there are miniature golf tournaments where these guys are real.
Really?
You could play for money, and it's they got like a whole league going. Miniature golf can be very lucrative at the highest level. But
maybe I'm not that good.
Yeah,
I'll take that back.
But in terms of golf, yeah, I've met and interviewed so many big names in golf, and so many big tournaments have been held here. The PGA Championship is coming up. They've moved it from August to May, and it's being played again at Bethpage Black, which has hosted U.S. Opens in 2002 and 2009. U.S. Open was played at Shinnecock out in the Hamptons, last summer. So, I've gotten to meet all of these wonderful golfers, and golf now is incredibly popular. But at its highest level, we get to enjoy it with so many great golf courses on the island too.
I was going to say, Bethpage really put Long Island on the map.
Yeah.
With golf.
Yeah.
And who would think? I mean, when you live in Long Island, you don't realize how many big things are actually in our area, very close to us in the city.
That's right. But growing up in Western Nassau, though, I never looked to the east. Yeah, I played golf at Bethpage and Eisenhower, whatever. But I didn't know anything about Suffolk County when I grew up. You grew up, in Western Nassau, my attention was west. I went, my field trips in school, New York City. I had friends, Queens, Brooklyn. I was born in Brooklyn.
It was Nassau, then the Hamptons.
Yeah, right.
There was nothing in between.
Yeah, I remember I had my cousins. I had cousins who moved from the city, and they moved to east of us. We were in North Valley Stream. I remember my father telling me, "Oh, they moved way out on the island." I said, "Where? Where? Belmore." We considered that to be way out. Montauk was another country. I never went further east than Jones Beach. I mean, that's about it. I mean, when you grow up in Western Nassau, the city is your focus.
Yeah.
And then when I came back to New York, to Long Island, working at Walk Radio, which was in Patchogue at the time, then Suffolk County. To me, Suffolk was all farmland, growing up. So I didn't realize. I mean, I had no knowledge of Suffolk. And
it is weird. If you don't drive out there, there are still the farms, obviously. And
if you go far enough east, that's very true.
Yeah, we're not used to that.
No, everything's overdeveloped now.
So let's get into your comedy, because you've been doing a lot. What do you have anything coming up that you want to promote first before we forget?
Let's see. Off the top of my head, let's see. This Saturday, Genova's Restaurant on Route 112 in Medford. It's a dinner and show. My pal Alan Streisfeld of Wilshire Comedy is producing the show. I think it only sees about 30 people, so it's a kind of a smaller show, but very good Italian food. And then you get comedy, Les Deegan, who is one of my best friends in comedy, and Valerie Labasi, who hasn't done comedy that long, and she is just wonderful. She's, Italian. Actually, she's Jewish, married an Italian, and she's lovely. She's just and terrific. Matter of fact, the three of us did a show at my own temple back on December 1st that was very, very popular. Everybody loved it. So the three of us are doing this restaurant. I've got a couple of shows coming up in March. One at the Little Room at Governor's, where you have performed, I know,
yes.
Right? At the Little Room. One thing I want to say about Dennis, who's very funny. He's a terrific comedian, but this always meant a lot to me. We went to stand-up university together, graduated together, and the first show I did after graduating in the Little Room, you were there, not performing. You were sitting right up front. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
That meant so much to me. You came to see all of us, but it meant a lot to me to see a friendly face right up front because I was so nervous.
I always try to support it. It's tough with my job that I can't even do a lot of my own gigs, but when I am off, I do try to support everybody.
Right. Yeah. So and that meant
especially because I did find you very funny. I told you there that day. You seem like the most natural.
Oh, it's nice of you to say.
If you're not familiar with comedy, it looks a lot easier than it is when you see a pro. And you got up there and you just owned it. And what I really liked about you, too, is not only you're a clean comic, which means you got to rely on being funny, not shocking,
right.
Which is a whole different level. But you owned it. You stuck to your convictions. You said, this is what I want to do. You went up there and you did it with such confidence. And I'm like, why are you in this class? You shouldn't be here.
Nice to say, but confidence. I mean, if you can fake it, that's good. But the more you do it, the more confident you get, and the more comfortable you get up on stage, as you well know. So, but I've done all kinds of venues now: the larger ones, the smaller ones. The restaurants, the Vets halls, the American Legion halls. I mean, and every audience is different. But if you can connect with them, if they can buy into who you are.
Right.
You really can't hide with comedy. You can't be somebody you're not. So they'll see through that.
Although some people do develop a character that do very well with it. But you have to be really good at it. You have to be a Dice Clay or a Jim Brewer or someone that can really, really sell that character.
Or Larry the Cable Guy, who I have seen in person, And maybe because I'm not from the South, I can't understand any of what he says.
Well, supposedly he doesn't speak like that at all.
What?
I heard he doesn't speak
No, he
like
doesn't.
that at all.
He doesn't, but that's his persona.
Yeah.
Even when he plays in celebrity golf tournaments, he's still Larry the Cable Guy. He doesn't,
Right.
take that off and then become a regular guy. But
Yeah, so if you're going to be a character, you really have to sell it.
that is true. I think it's easier just to be yourself as much as possible. So, yeah, so I've got some shows coming up at the the Little Room at Governor's, and some other places too. I think a Firehouse in Bohemia. I mean, once upon a time, you could only do comedy shows at a comedy club.
Right.
Now every place can have a comedy show. Restaurants, bowling centers,
Libraries. Yeah.
Right? That's right. Everywhere. That's true.
John said you've been a comedian since the 7th grade.
Oh, is that John Picciolo?
Yeah.
My buddy. Yeah, there he is. An Elmont grad. And part of my longer set, I talk about Elmont, which was a very rough school when I was there. Not for John. John was into it with he was in with a different class of kids. I was a dork, Elmont Memorial High School, 7th grade through 12th grade in one building, which was a very cruel thing to do for a 12-year-old Jewish dork walking down the hall alongside 26-year-olds who were on the 15-year plan. I spent most of my time in Elmont, 6 years, near my locker. Actually shoved inside my locker, okay? All right. Sometimes it was voluntary. I'd see a maniac coming at me. I'd say, don't get in
I
trouble.
got it for you.
I'm just going inside.
Is that when you decided to join the gang?
Yes, my Jewish gang, known as MS-13, marked down to 1295. So that's the Jewish gang that I joined for protection. But yeah, Elmont was a good training ground to try to laugh my way through high school, because it was a rough high school for those of us who were in the dork wing, if you know what I mean. But ironically, when I got to WALK Radio, and now that I'm doing comedy, I've become friends with a lot of the guys who I was scared of. A lot of the people I was scared of who were either too cool or too rough, or they were jocks or whatever, and now they're just all great guys. And we say to each other, I wish we'd go back in time. I would have been friends with you guys.
Right.
It's too late now, but
Yeah.
but now we get together and got a lot of friends now who I never associated with in high school.
Now, I know you said you touched on comedy a little bit in the 80s. I don't know how much you did in it. Did you notice a difference between then and now? Because talking to people that have been there since the 80s, it's a tremendous difference.
Yeah, and I was doing clean comedy back then too. I was working up in Attleboro, Massachusetts, and I was doing some local comedy clubs. I can't even remember the stuff I was doing. I was doing things about being single, or I was newly married at the time. It was much different in terms of the material and in terms of what the crowds were expecting, that type of thing. It was a lot of those smaller comedy clubs up in Rhode Island.
Right.
When I was first doing it, I can hardly remember doing it there because I wasn't serious at all. Just
You said, I know I heard the main difference is back then you had to be funny.
Yeah.
You had to sell the promoter and or the manager of the club. Whereas now it's like, well, what are you going to bring in? You got 30 people? I don't care if you're funny or not. Come in, you got a set.
That is true. For people who are thinking about doing comedy, one of the ways that you start to climb the ladder is you go to these so-called bringer shows where you can get 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes on stage, but the person producing the show will say, well, you've got to bring 5 people. You've got to bring
Right.
7 people, or something like that, which I've done. But then you get to a level where if they see you've got something
Yeah.
that you can offer, and in my case, emceeing is a great way to start climbing.
I finally did a couple of those. And
Did you?
The first one was a little weird. But then after I did it, it's fun.
It's a challenge, though. You're the
Yeah,
first
oh,
one
yeah.
out there. And it's funny, sometimes you MC, and I'll do 10 minutes of comedy, and then I'll do a little comedy between all of
Right.
the other comedians. And then when the show's over, and everybody's greeting you on the way out, they say, oh yeah, you were funny too. Yeah, oh, that's right, you performed too. An MC isn't known as one of the
Right.
comedians
Yeah.
usually, because you're just kind of steering the ship, but you're getting a lot of
And your
experience.
job's the most important because not only are you setting the tone for the first comedian to come up and be funny, you also have to, if someone bombs,
Right.
you got to get that crowd back up for the
Right.
next one.
That's exactly right. That shows a good MC.
Yeah.
If somebody's struggling and you want to try to get the crowd back for the person who's following.
And that's
true.
one of the hardest things to do is go to not even a cold crowd, but a down crowd. Like they just were taken out of the show by that last comedian. You got to somehow pump life back into them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. This past weekend, again, Paul Anthony, who's a wonderful producer, but very funny himself. He's a terrific comedian, too. And in both cases, at My Father's Place in Roslyn and Theater 3, the big theater in Port Jefferson, Paul went out there and he had the crowd really going. And in both cases, in both shows, I was the first one that he was bringing up. But he got the crowd beautifully,
Yeah.
just all pumped up. And
you got a
both
good
of those
MC.
shows.
There's no bad spot.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. But you know, you and I have seen all kinds of comics. All kinds of comics. You go to these open mics and whatever, and
Yeah.
some people struggle, and you see them, and
And that's the thing, if you're not a good comic, even if you have a lot of friends, you won't get past that bringer stage.
Yeah.
Where you're definitely well past that now.
thankfully things have gone well, but it's still a climb. It's still rough. It's who you know too, but you got to bring something to the table. But I give credit to every single person I've ever seen at an open mic, or even if these shows, these bringer shows where people don't have a lot of experience. It takes guts to get up there.
I prefer getting on stage at a show than an open mic. Open mics are rough.
They are, because
No
open
feedback.
Well, because open mics, let's say there are 20 people in the room, and all 20 people are going to be taking their turn up at the mic. They're thinking about what they're going to
working
say.
this
They're
out,
working
yeah.
on their notes. They're not paying attention to you. So you're telling jokes and nobody's reacting.
And if you're in a bar, the other half may not want you there.
Yeah.
So they're just going to heckle you.
That's true.
Or they think they're helping you by heckling you because they don't get it. Yeah, it can be rough.
That is true. I did a show in Suffolk. I won't say where. I did one of these shows. I emceed a show. And it had like 10, 11, 12 comedians before the headliner came out.
Right.
And some of these people, a few of them, one of them had never done comedy before. She showed up and convinced the producer, can I go up there and do 5 minutes? And I don't, he might have known her, I'm not sure. She went up there and she said, and I give her credit for just standing up there. She said, well, there's something I always wanted to do, and I really don't have any material. Let me just tell you what happened today. And she talked about her day. Nothing was funny. It was just what she did. I did the laundry, I did this, nothing. So when you're on stage, and you're given 5 minutes, and there are people who don't know what 5 minutes feels like. It can either feel like an eternity or go very quickly, depending on how you're doing. But this young woman had no idea what 5 minutes was, so I was supposed to give her a light. So I pick up my phone, and you're supposed to use the flashlight setting or whatever, and so I'm waving it at her from the back of the room, and she ignores it. I don't think she knew what the light meant, so she kept going. So she's beyond 5 minutes. She's at 6 minutes, 7 minutes. Then I go over to the side door where you go on stage, and I'm waving the light again. She finally sees me, and then she says, oh, okay, I guess my time is up, unless you'd like me to talk a little more. And one guy went, and she said, okay, and she went another 3 minutes. At that point, I had to actually walk on stage and get her off, because she just had no idea what she was doing. I still give her credit for doing it, but it was painful.
Yes.
So at least craft something, craft some jokes. You can take notes with you up onto the stage.
Go to
That's
stand-up
fine.
university.
Yeah. Rich Walker, Steve Lazarus, Peter Bales. It's terrific. It's like, it was, you know what it was like for us? It was like 6 weeks of summer camp. That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
It was great.
And I like the format because you went in there with nothing.
Right.
And they told you, they kind of got a feel for everybody and what they did. And they said, come in with 10 things that you hate or like or whatever. And they said, don't even try to be funny. We'll make you funny. And they taught you how to write, basically.
Right.
And it gave you the real basis of it. And once you get going, I started using Paul Bond's workshops or one-on-ones with him.
Right.
Because he brings you to the next level. I know Rich does one-on-ones as well. And I'm sure most of the higher-level comics do something.
They do. But they break it down. Premise, topic, joke, what works, what doesn't, how to make something funnier. Even just replacing a word or two can change what you're saying and get a laugh when, if you say it, let's say in reverse or a different way, it doesn't work.
Order is important, and less is more, which we found out.
That's
Because
right.
it seems like you want to really explain something to bring it home, and you're actually taking away from the funny. You just want to set up, punch, boom, get out, go to the next one.
Yeah, but again, for anybody who has an interest in it or who have this on their bucket list, this is something I always want to do, but I've been too scared or whatever. You take one of these classes, try it. There's nothing more terrifying and exilarating than doing that. Yeah, it is.
I remember my first show was before I did anything. I did the Gateway show. I did one workshop, and I had no idea what I was doing. I thought it was teaching me how to write. There was a little confusion in what I told them to what they told me.
Yeah.
And so then Mike Dillon reached out and says, you want to enter this competition? I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, aren't you a comic? And I said, no. He goes, didn't you do the workshop? I said, yeah, but I have no material. He's like, well, if you want to come up with 5 minutes, bring a couple of people, go, don't worry about the competition aspect, just try it. And I did, and I had a lot of fun. And that's why I kept doing it. But to me, it was a bucket list thing. I did it, and I was done until he called and said, do you want to do another show?
There you go.
And I was like, you sure? He goes, yeah, you were good. I was like, all right, if you say so. Now I look back at that stuff, it's garbage, And I've heard that from a lot of people. Like, I don't know if you know Mick Thomas.
Oh, I just performed with him.
Hysterical. The guy's funny.
You're talking about the Irish
Yes.
Wonder. Now, Mick Thomas performed as the closer. He was the headliner at Theater 3. And again, I was the first introduced by the MC, whatever. And the crowd was fantastic. They were cracking up from the first thing, whatever. It was their enthusiasm was off the charts. But Mick Thomas came out there, as well as we all thought we did. He came out there, and people were literally falling off their chairs, falling out of their seats. He is that good.
It's funny because you say that because the first time I saw him, I felt like it was getting really good.
And then you
I
see
was
him.
like, I'm ready to go to that next level. I'm ready for this. And then I watched him. I'm like, I suck. I should just quit right now.
I know.
But it was funny because something he did say, he goes, like your first 5-10 years, he goes, a throwaway, especially first 5 years. He goes, the jokes that you think are great now, you're going to throw them out. He goes, and I'm not insulting you because I have not seen your hat yet. He goes, but these are garbage jokes. He goes, and take it from me and every other comedian I've worked with. Your first 5 years, just trying to find yourself. And I've heard this from everybody. Your first 5 years trying to find yourself. The next 5 years are kind of developing it. So you need really 10 years
I've heard this from the best comics I've worked with.
to get there.
That's true, because I'm in my third year now of doing this seriously, and and I think it's going well.
Yeah.
But I look back even on what I did when I first did this New York's Funniest Reporter competition I mentioned earlier. When I did that, now I look back at that set and I say, boy, I'm not using any of that stuff, and that was weird. But guys I've talked to, I'm a big fan of Eric Haft, and he and the publisher of Golfing Magazine have their own company, Have to Laugh Productions, and they do country clubs and everything else. But Eric goes all over the place, and Eric performed at my father's place last Friday night. Eric is just among the funniest guys I've ever met, and he like Mick Thomas, is so good, and his timing is so good, the audience doesn't have a chance to catch their breath. You know, you want them to take a break for a second just to catch your breath because you're laughing so hard and so constantly. And Eric is that talented because he's theatrical and he's incredible. And Mick, of course, is all over the stage, and you've seen him. He's just, and that's the first time I ever saw him. I never met him before. I hadn't seen him, and he came out. I didn't know what to expect, and he blew the doors off. But there's so many guys I've worked with who are so good. John Santo, the master impressionist, who's great.
Chris Monty, like we mentioned before.
Chris Monty.
Another really funny guy.
Chris Monty is just, and he's a national headliner. I mean, he's done everything. He's in Vegas. I mean, he's been all over the place, and he still does small shows when, he has a chance
Some
here.
people like that. And have you done much in the city?
Yeah, Comic Strip Live and Broadway Comedy Club, yeah.
You realize how small some of those clubs are. Like, you think,
Yeah.
you hear, oh, these guys started in these places, and you expect these big, huge rooms.
No.
A lot of them are small.
They look like the comedy clubs here.
Yeah.
And of course, some of the biggest names in comedy started on Long Island. You know who started here, from Rosie O'Donnell to Eddie Murphy to Seinfeld, of course, and all these Bob Nelson. I mean, they've all started here at clubs that look very much like the ones you find in the city. Then they're not all Beacon Theater. I mean, they're small clubs.
Well, just look at the people that were at Dangerfields. When I got
Yeah.
that gig, I was like, oh, I'm so
That's
excited.
right.
I'm at
You
Dangerfields.
did Dangerfields.
And I went
How
there
was that?
it was great. You have to do it because just knowing who was in there,
Right.
there's an aura of the place. They haven't really changed it at all. It's expensive. You're going to pay for your drinks there
I
a lot more than anywhere else, but it's something you have to do.
In June of '75, I took my prom date and my friend and his prom date. We rented a limo for $90 for the whole night. Wow. You can't get a limo for $90 for a whole night now. And we went from, I think, the Sands, where the prom was held, on Long Beach, and we took the limo and went to Dangerfields. And remember, the drinking age was 18 back then, okay? So we were allowed in, it was fine. And we went to Dangerfields after the prom.
I just expected that so much bigger, thinking of Rodney Dangerfield and
No, it's
Roseanne
not that
Barr,
big a
and
place.
I expected this gigantic,
No.
and it's not. And
But I'm so envious that you performed there, because I mean, to me,
it's a lot of fun.
That's an iconic place. I mean, that's
and Caroline. Well,
Yeah,
Caroline's
Caroline's
is pretty big.
Yeah, I haven't been there, but
Broadway, I've done upstairs a few times.
they have different rooms
And then
there.
I went downstairs. I expected it to be a lot bigger than it was. And again, not that it's the right size for a comedy club. It really is.
Yeah.
But I just was thinking the Little Room. But the Little Room is kind of indicative of a lot of those city clubs that are iconic. So.
And again, at Governor's, you have the little room. You have the bigger room, which seats a couple of hundred, I guess. But then the little room, which seats, about 70, 75 people.
I think they cut it down because it was a little too much. I think it's like 55, 60 now.
And
they were cramming people
right,
in.
and they're sitting on top
was
of each
rough.
other. But there's something about that room, though. They're on top of you. I mean, it's very
It's more
intimate.
intimate.
It's great, though, because the laughs are right on top of you. If you're
Yeah.
doing well, it sounds great because you can see the
Yeah.
face of everybody there. In a bigger room, I mean, they're all back there. You got the lights on you, but the little room is very intimate.
Do you
Very,
prefer a bigger or a smaller crowd?
either one. Now
it's
that
fun-
I've done bigger crowds, the last two shows I've done some big vets halls or whatever. Either one. I just love performing. I don't care.
With my background of a DJ and a singer, I wanted a bigger crowd because bigger crowd, bigger energy. And I
Right.
would try to feed off them. Then I was told by a lot of people, you can't feed off them. You have to give them something.
Right.
It's not like DJing, you're playing a song, everybody's like, woo, and then you get into it. You have to make them want it.
Right.
So I did learn from that, but still, the bigger the crowd, the more comfortable I was, which most people are the exact opposite. Like, oh, give me 2, 3 people. It's harder for me to do a one-on-one or a small venue. Now, I think I actually prefer the smaller venues just for what you're saying. They're right on top. You know if it's funny. You're seeing everybody's face.
Right. But it's a great
And
experience.
you have to win them over to get something.
You do.
You're in a crowd of 200, 50 laugh. Good response. You know, it sounds
But
good.
that-
But,
but
if you think percentage-wise, it's not so good.
It's true, and also I performed twice this past weekend. I'd met her for the first time, and she's a real pro. Maria Wall, she's America's naughtiest mommy. I think that's her moniker, and she was great both nights. But she told me before I went out at Theater 3, I said, boy, this is a big venue, 300 people there. You know, it's a real theater. It's like a Broadway theater, Theater 3. And she said, the thing about this is that, she says, I know you'll do well, but you've got to let the laughs die down. Don't jump on the laughs because when you have a bigger venue, the laugh comes in waves. It goes here and then it comes back. And, sometimes you'll think the laughs are done and they're not because it's a larger room. It's a different type of animal. So it was
always,
different.
you got to play to the back.
Right, play to the back.
back.
Right. And imagine them with no clothes on, all the regular stuff. So, but a lot of fun.
Now, I just want to mention quick, because I did forget before, March 1st, I'm going to be in Little Room again. with
Okay,
Terry
you are? Good.
McNeely.
Terry's great.
Yeah, he's another really funny guy. And March 23rd, I'm at the Loft in Belmore. It's a competition.
Oh, that's it.
Aragon was
Good.
a competition, so my first competition I sucked at, and then I've gotten a little better each one, so hopefully this one I can
Hopefully I
do
can come.
something.
I'd
That'd be nice.
I'd love to come and support you.
Have
for
you
that,
seen the
too.
Loft yet?
So no, have not been. Belmore, right?
Yeah,
No.
it's above the Belmore Playhouse. They renovated the whole thing.
Right.
I haven't been there in a long time, and I went there finally to the theater, and I walked upstairs, and it looks like a nice
Nice.
room. So
I'd say here's one venue that I think a lot of Long Island comedians who are climbing the ladder would love to play. It's a dream. Paramount. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a place that
that's like the one now because that's where Jim Brewer is.
right.
That's where
Brewer's
Kevin-
got the residency there and it's
Kevin
doing
James
well.
goes there.
Right. Right. But isn't it funny that
and Westbury.
Yeah, Westbury.
Yeah.
I grew up.
I saw
whatever.
Rodney Dangerfield there.
Yeah, whatever it's called now. I saw. Okay, I go back.
Leno.
Pretty far. I saw Don Rickles there. Saw Buddy Hackett there. And by the way, both were. And I was, I don't know, a teenager or maybe even younger than that. Whatever. My parents took me because I loved Rickles. You see Rickles on the Carson and the late night shows, and then you see him, and he was unbelievably dirty. And so was Hackett. Buddy Hackett. Buddy Hackett. I'll say he's doing sexual jokes or whatever, and I don't know, I was like 12 years old, and I'm watching him at Westbury Music Fair. My mother's saying, I don't know why the hell took you to this, because she didn't realize it.
Yeah, he was a child
That's
actor,
right.
pretty much.
But
yeah.
my parents, like many other families, especially Jewish families, took my brother and I to the Catskills every single summer. We went to virtually every hotel, from Concord to Grossinger's, to Homoac, Tamarack, Browns, all these. And of course, you had so many great comedians up there, especially in the 60s, into the early 70s when things started to, fade a little bit. But I saw some of the great comedians who worked the Catskills, including guys who would take Catskills and bring it to Broadway in the 1990s. That was Malzy Lawrence, Dick Capri, who I actually met in person, who was a neighbor of my father in New Jersey, Freddie Roman. I mean, these are incredible legends who performed in the Catskills, who came back and did it on Broadway for a while. And the Catskills back in the 50s, 60s, whatever, there was nothing like it. Nothing like it. It was great. Yeah.
It was funny when Bob Saget was getting attacked because, oh no, he's a family actor and he's supposed to be that. I'm like, what about Buddy Hackett? And I was like, oh, all right. Because he was in Herbie and all that stuff. Nobody really knew. Like when I first saw his act, I liked him because I saw him in Herbie.
You saw how dirty he was.
This is not for me.
Oh my God, blue humor.
Yeah.
But Saget especially too, because of Full House.
Yeah.
He was an off-color blue
And he
comic.
didn't look like the guy that would do
No,
that.
but he was doing that before he did Full
Yeah.
House. He came to Full House. I mean, remember, he wasn't well known doing comedy across
Right.
the country, but he does Full House. Then he goes back to what he was doing before, and whoa, this isn't Full House stuff.
But you see Dice, you expect it. You
Yeah.
saw Bob
Oh, yeah.
Saget, you did not expect it coming from him. So it was kind of a
but,
shock.
but Saget is really funny,
Yeah.
even with the dirty stuff. But you're right, and Dice was just that. I mean, sometimes I don't care if you like clean humor or not. You know, at least for me, I was one of those people who saw Dice for the first time and I was crying. You know, I was crying. I was laughing.
He was
so
very
hard.
good at what he did, and it was character.
And again, character. You
Yeah.
said because he sold that character.
Yeah.
That's not who he really
That's not
is.
who he was.
That's his
Yeah.
character.
We pretty much got to wrap it up. Anything else you want to promote before we go?
No, I got shows coming up, but connect with me on Facebook, and I'll be glad to tell you where I'm going to be. If you want to come, that would be great. I can't thank you enough for.
Yeah, no
having
problem.
me.
Hopefully we
Boy,
get to work
this,
together again
This went
soon.
very quickly.
Yes.
I mean,
The hour goes fast.
It does. But
And again, don't forget Frank Zambuto at K Logistics. Reach out to him on his direct line, 347-536-3933.
hey, wait a minute, Zippy. Dude, who was his prom date? Heck, he was like, she might even be watching tonight. Patricia Gershik. Pat Gershik was my girlfriend in 12th grade. That's right. Had one girlfriend. I blossomed in 12th grade. That's why I took to the prom. All right, Zip? You got it, Zip.
All right, we'll see you next week.